Hey guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my October wrap-up, and I'm very happy in myself. I read 9 books! This is the most I've read in a month in a long time, so let's just kind of get into it. So in no order, especially not in the order that I read it, the first book I read in October was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Now I gave this, this follows the reporter Camille Preaker, close enough, who after staying in a mental hospital after a breakdown, goes home to investigate these missing girls and ends up kind of stuck figuring out how they died, what happened, and realizing that she has more in common with these girls than she has had with anyone else in her life. So very interesting. I believe this is her first novel. But either way, I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. So far, it's not my favorite out of the books that I've read by Gillian Flynn, but I definitely did enjoy it. It just got really intense at times. I had to put it down, just give myself a very deep breath. But I'll have more of my thoughts and reviews and whatnot in the description below. That'll be the same case with all these other books. So if somehow I missed something and you wanted more information on it, be sure to check that out. The next book that I read in October was Caraval by Stephanie Garber, and I know I'm very late to the game, but here we are. And this follows these two sisters as they are tossed into this world that is created by this mastermind named Legend, and it's very circusy, has a very circusy theme, and has a very big hold on sisterly relationships. Now I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. While I did love it a ton, I felt like the sister relationship, it was banking a lot on that, but it felt very non-existent. I didn't see a lot of change between their relationship, given how Scarlett has described it versus how Donatella reacts. So it was just very kind of annoying to see all these descriptions and kind of see no payout. But regardless, I'm excited to pick up the second book, which I believe follows it in Donatella's version, which should be interesting because I would really like to be in her head a bit more. The next book on this list is one that I'm, again, very late to the game of, but I adored, and that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I love the cast. I love the point of view. It's set in 1920s New York involving the occult, so you know I'm going to love it so much. But I think what dinged me was that toward the end, the POVs that I enjoyed reading became kind of shoved to the bottom, and I wasn't a huge fan of it because I didn't see their whole relevance by the end of the book, which is sad because they put such a big role in the first half, and then the second half it kind of went away. So I'm excited to see where Libba Bray is going to be taking this book next, in the next couple of books. So I should be picking that up pretty soon. The next book that I read in October is a play, and that was a reread really, and that is Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. Now I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. While I adored it even more so not having to analyze it for class. And if you don't know, Romeo and Juliet is about the star-crossed lovers of Verona whose parents, the Montagues and the Capulets, are in constant battle. But I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it was really enjoyable to read. I understood more of it when I wasn't analyzing it for class. However, I have to agree with my friend. I do think that Romeo and Juliet is one of the plays where you just have to watch it and enjoy, and you can't really get a ton of emotion from reading it. So after I finished this, I watched the 2014 version with Haley Steinfeld and Douglas Booth, and I cried. The next book that I read was sadly my lowest rated out of the series, the chunk of books that I read, and that is Dividing Eden by Joelle Charbonneau. I really don't know how to pronounce her name, and I'm really sorry. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I felt that the characters were really lackluster. The plot was wonderful and I enjoyed it, but there were some aspects that I felt it's based solely on this strong sibling bond, but when it came down to it, didn't take a lot for that bond to fall apart, and I think that it just wasn't a good depiction of saying it was a strong bond, and that took me down by a lot. But I do want to read the second part of the duology to see where this goes, because it did leave on a bit of a cliffhanger, and I want to see what happens next. Oh, right, and this is about two twins who were never meant to be on the throne, and after the death of their older brother, and their father, they are now put on this kind of competition to see who wins the throne. It's kind of a weird Three Dark Crown situation, but a little subdued. The next book that I read is one that I just finished the last book for, like, the other day, and that is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. Laura Jean has these letters that she's written to every boy she's loved before as a kind of a closure. So she writes one to her sister's boyfriend, whom she had held a crush for however many years, and however those letters kind of get out, and these 3 books are kind of dealing with the fallout of that happening. Now, I adored this book. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I felt like while this book was great, it did suffer from a bit of second book syndrome, which isn't bad. Second book, like, writing the second book is very difficult, but I felt like it was very immature in some situations, and I will go ahead and leave my book of the week chat about it, where I talk about my feelings while I was in the middle of this book below, and in the cards if I remember, but definitely below. So again, 3 out of 5 stars, and I don't think this is my favorite book out of it because it was just, everything was handled so immaturely, I believe. So I just think that I have outgrown that situation since now being 22 and they are about like 17-ish. The next book that I read was one that I did not mean to read. Well, actually the one that I did not mean to finish in October. I meant to finish it in November, but that is Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. And I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I found myself crying. And if you don't know, the Prince and the Dressmaker is about Prince Sebastian, who by day he is Prince Sebastian, but by night he is this wonderful model named Lady Crystalia, who happens upon this dressmaker or aspiring dressmaker named Francis, and they embark on a journey where Francis is kind of stuck between a position of choosing her friend or choosing her career. And it has a lot of ideas of like gender identity and whatnot, and it was just such a heartbreaking and wonderful novel. I was like laughing and crying at the same time. And it also deals a lot with like this difficult decision that Frances has to choose between what she's always wanted and protecting her friend's identity and not outing him. And it was just so great, 5 out of 5, like I said. And I'll leave more of my thoughts down below with my review because that one kind of summed it up. But my review does have minor spoilers in it. So if you are hesitant on that, like reading that, leave a comment and I'll try to explain my less flustered thoughts about this graphic novel down below in the comments for you. It was just so great, and I think it brought up so many like it explained the idea of gender identity, I think, or at least non-binariness. That's not even a word or a term, without having to go in this huge detail, and I think it did it so well. I sent a passage of it to my friend and they adored it, and they felt like they resonated with that single line. And I had read other reviews repeating that same sentiment, so yeah. But the trigger warning, there is a forced outing in this book. So if you are part of the trans community or the trans spectrum and that is a sensitive topic for you, I would just be a little wary of it because it's not brutal of how it happens, but it is very upsetting. If the lighting switching, I just turned on my lights, my windows are still open, trying to capture the rest of the natural lighting, so we're just going to deal with it. But the second to last book that I read in October was one that I read leading up to Halloween, and that is Edgar Allan Poe's Classic Stories by Edgar Allan Poe. Now, it just kind of follows, like it's split into 2 different parts, which is Tales of the Macabre and then Tales of Detection. And I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I have come to learn that Edgar Allan Poe I have to be in the correct mood to read him, and 0 distractions, which unfortunately most of the time I was trying to read him, there were so many distractions I couldn't focus. So I ended up not liking most of the Tales of Macabre side until about like the Red Mask of Death, and then all the way to the end through Tales of Detection. I enjoyed, but beforehand I didn't like it. I think it was just because it was Edgar Allan Poe's earlier works, and sadly it wasn't, I don't want to say it's subpar because he's a great author, but it wasn't my kind of style. So yeah, but like I wanted to rate it lower, but it also wasn't his fault. It was more my fault. So 4 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy the collection. I'm sure I'll be picking it back up again in the future just to see just to find other nooks and crannies where I can read this and actually enjoy it. But definitely would recommend this book. And like, look at how pretty this paperback is, although I did damage it a little bit here. The soft cover, like the leather bound soft cover for like Barnes & Noble's Classics editions, are absolutely gorgeous, and I just want to collect them all. The last book that I read in October was actually an audiobook, and that is The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. I ended up giving this, I believe, a 3 out of 5 stars. While I did enjoy this book, I felt that it was not my favorite book out of the series that she has put out. I think that I love it simply because we see more of the characters like Ronan and like Noah and like all my favorites, but I felt there were so many like minor small plots that were interlocking mixed with her heavy writing and kind of Will Patton's slow like narration that I was just having a hard time focusing. So I think that in comparison to the Raven Boys, where I was like very into it, got into it so well, this one not so much. And I think that's my problem when I was reading it as well. There was just a lot of plot lines going through, and it was just very hard to keep track of, especially when you didn't really enjoy some of the plot lines that were threading through here. And it felt like Ronan's backstory, like Ronan's story, which was kind of the main plot of the second book, took a bit of a backseat to the rest of everything else going on, which is a bit of, like in some areas, which I think was a bit of a shame. But yeah, what are you gonna do? So 3 out of 5 stars, and I'm a chunk through Blue Lily Lily Blue, so hopefully I will get to the last book and finish out the series very soon. But that is it for my October TBR. Again, this has been the most I've read since probably like high school, because I've never been able to read this many books before. It always took me a bit. So hopefully November will reap the same kind of results, and I will be able to take a chunk out of my TBR and continue on with the books that I don't own. But we'll see, we'll see. But if any of these books have piqued your interest and you want to chat more about them, or in the case of The Prince and the Dressmaker, where I got very flustered, and you want to hear more like non-spoiler thoughts, leave those comments down below. I would love to hear about them. Not like these videos if you like them. Subscribe if you don't want to miss anything. I upload every Saturday and Wednesday, and I do have a couple of like non-bookish videos every now and again that pop up in case that's something you're interested in. So yeah, but until then, I'll talk to you guys in the comments, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye!